Hey guys, Scott Patton here, and this is my top 5 baits for the month of October. You know, I live down here in Chickamauga, of course, and we're, more South Tennessee, dead center of the state. But anyways, it's just not cooled off enough here to make a big difference in a real good shallow water bite. I mean, the fish are shallow, but the fish just have not turned on. We just haven't, it's been getting down to, 55, 60 at the most at nights, and then during the day it's still be hitting 80, 85. So it just has not cooled off enough to what we want to really trigger these fish and go into a fall feeding before the winter. So but I'm still casing. I'm basically fishing everything shallow. What I'm doing, what I'm gonna focus on, and as we get in through October, it's going to cool off more. Even our extended forecast here in about 7 to 10 days, we're going to start getting mid 70s and cooler night temperatures, 50, 55 and stuff like that, as long as that weatherman doesn't change that for us. But I'm going to go through the 5 baits that I would for sure have on the deck. There's so many I would use, you guys. It's really hard to eliminate. This time of year you catch fish almost what I would call junk fishing. You could catch fish on 4 or 5 different topwater baits. You could catch them on 4 or 5 flipping mats, or you could be flipping lay down trees and stuff like that. So all that stuff's gonna be fished differently. But really, this is a major transition month, and as we get towards more the end of October, them fish should be more shallow, or you'll be able to kind of focus more on whether you're going to catch them on 4 or 5 baits. So I'm going to go through the ones that I'm going to be fishing, and we'll start out with the top water, and I've done real good with it here lately, you guys. I know on Nick and Jack, I've been catching a lot of fish on pop water, caught some good ones. Popping bait like this right here. You can see that right there. Rico, Popar, there's several companies making them right now. This is a bone colored, and of course you want feathered tails on the bait, you guys. I've got this rigged up on braid. I've been throwing it around braid because we've been throwing it around a lot of thick grass and stuff. But a lot of times I'll throw this on monofilament too, you guys. If it's just fishing more over stumps or something like that, or grass that's not as thick as what we've been fishing. Nick and Jack, the grass has been real thick, so a lot of times those bigger fish can get you hung up in you'd be fishing down a grass line, something like that, and the grass may be 2-3 foot deep, but you're fishing that little drop off those areas that's got probably about 4 to 6 foot of water, but them fish can grab that bait and head right into that mat in just a few seconds and get you tangled up. So that's why I've chose to use a braid right now. But it seems like when I'm fishing, I don't get real aggressive when I'm throwing a popping bait this time of year. I'm going to fish it more slow. I mean, it's almost like dead sticking. I'm going to pop it once all times. Just let it set, let the rings clear. Back in the old days, we always used to hurry by throwing a hula popper. You throw it out there, pop it. Same kind of concept. You're just going to throw it out there, pop it, let it set. You pop it again, let it set. It just seems to be like these fish are wanting to look at it before they eat it. It's not like they're coming from a long distance because they hear a bunch of noise. It's because they're already in the area that you got that bait. They're curious about it. They're sitting there looking at it. They can't stand it for it to sit there any longer, and then they're going to eat it. So, a popping bait is something I can fish and cover a lot of water with. It's a good top water, of course, early in the morning. If you got cloudy, rainy days, of course, I would fish this a little bit longer throughout the day. But just make sure you got some type of top water tied on. I myself, again, I like the popping baits. And I'm throwing this on I throw almost all of my top water baits on this Powell endurance rod. It's 6104, it's 6'10". It's good. It's got great action for it. I ain't throw my jerk baits and stuff on it too, you guys, but it's just a good all-around rod for top waters and jerk baits if you're fishing it. But anyway, so on to the next bait. Let me set this out of the way. All right, and a bait that you've got to have tied on, you guys, is of course a jackhammer, chatterbait, or whichever one you prefer to throw. And I'm throwing this mainly, like I say, I still feel like in October, a lot of the fish are still feeding on shad, so I'm still focusing on shad color baits. Fishing this back in the creeks. October is probably a month I'm going, especially the last couple of weeks of October, I'm going to go more into the backs of the creeks for sure. I'm going to fish, up shallow on the flats and stuff like that. Any kind of ditches or something like that, I might be able to find in some of these flats where there's grass beds around or stumps, stuff like that. I'm trying to follow those channels through, as they wind through these flats and stuff like that, and just fan cast the whole area, you guys, and just watch for bait and stuff like that. It's going to, really key, the bait a lot of times will key you off to where the fish are going to be. So if you're fishing a flat, and there are ditches and stuff running through it, pay attention to, when I'm using my little ranch, whether I'm using my active target or just my regular down scan, I'm looking for those little drop-offs and stuff in there, so I can, now I'll try to stay in them. I'll use my active target just to scan around so I can see where that ditch line is in there, guys. Okay, it's like, off to the right or to the left, because when you throw that around with with the stretcher scan, you can see that wall coming up like that. So, use that, even if a lot of guys, we don't like to always use a stretcher scan just to throw a minnow at and shake at these fish and stuff like that. But you can use that stretcher scan for a whole lot of other things that can help you find these ditches and stuff like that, guys. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to stay with the shad colored. Throwing this normally on 17 to 20 pound tests. Fluorocarbon, Seaguar fluorocarbon. I tend to go with the Braze X, and this is I throw this on the 705, or so, I throw this on 705. Is probably my favorite rod to throw a chatterbait or jackhammer on, but I will, if I'm fishing real big flats and stuff like that, I will go to like a 734 in the endurance. Just have a little bit longer tip and better hook setting power, but day in and day out, that 705 is a perfect rod for this. And the next bait I'm going to go with to you guys, it's going to be a square bill. A lot of guys have gotten away from throwing these things, and I know a lot of these guys are going to spend the whole fall doing nothing but shaking the minnow. I'm not one of them guys. I'm not going to do that. But I love to fish my stretcher scan. I want it on my boat, but I'm not always going to be using it to shake a minnow or look for isolated fish and stuff like that. I'm using it as a tool to identify stumps, creek channels, and stuff like that. And another bait I'm going to be throwing a lot in October, and the good thing is these fish ain't seeing these baits as much as they used to see them, is of course a 1.5 Strike King square bill. Is the green gizzard is a good one, and also the chartreuse shad is one of my favorites, especially on cloudy days and stuff like that. Early in the morning they really like that bait. But I'm throwing that on a 705 pound rod. Look for any kind of cover. I don't care if it's riprap, if it's down in the middle of creek channels, over grass beds, where the grass, I can hold my rod tip up high and crank it over that grass and stuff real slow, and I may hang in some. It's no different than like throwing a rattle trapper type bait. You guys, if you hang in the grass, just jerk that rod tip out of there, and that's going to trigger a lot of strikes. So, go back to some of these baits, you guys. Because I'm telling you, they're not seeing as much pressure, every day as they used to with these 1.5s, and I've been catching a lot of fish on them, so I kind of kept that to myself. But all the way through October, I'll have these tied on. And of course, I'm right here on Nickajack and Chickamauga, right here close to Gunnersville. We'll be doing some fishing on Gunnersville here next month too. We're going to film some frog fish up there, but you got to have that frog tied on if you're in this area, if you're around lakes that's got grass. And I've said this before, you guys, even if you do fish around the lake that doesn't have grass, these things are great. You can walk these things just like a spook, going around, lay down trees and stuff. You get so much tighter with a frog than you can, say, a spook or something like that, or even a poplar. But even a popping frog, you throw it, a lot tighter in these lay downs and stuff like that, around docks even and stuff like that. And it's a lot easier to skip underneath the dock. And you can still walk that thing underneath that dock, you guys. I'm telling you, a frog is so versatile. It's not just for throwing it around grass. But, I'm going to have this frog tied on all fall, all the way through November for sure. I'll throw different colors. This, of course, is a bone color, but I'll throw black and bluegill colors and stuff like that. But, of course, you got to throw it on braid. I'm throwing this on a 734 pound rod. It's good, heavy, stiff rod. If I get to throwing them in like way back and real big mats, thick mat, if I get to throwing this thing back on these mats way back, closer to the shoreline, stuff like that, Then I may go to a longer rod, something like one of my flipping sticks or something like that. That way I got more power to get them out of there. And I will definitely be throwing on 65-pound test braid when that happens too. A lot of times I'll go with 50, but I will use 65, when I'm just casting, 30, 40, 50 yards out. But if I'm going to make a really long cast, a lot of times I want that heavier line, and I'll go with the 65-pound test braid, okay? You guys, but like I say, use that frog for more than just, fishing grass, you guys. It's a great bait, and you just got to keep an open mind and fish around all kinds of different types of cover. So that's got that right there. And then the last one, you guys, and it's something I love to do, and that is punching. I mean, of course I guide, and there's a lot of guys don't like to punch, but it's just, to me, it's just fun. I love to flip any way I can flip, but the punch is really a lot of fun. I'm throwing that 3/4 ounce and 1 ounce pro tungsten most of the time this time of year. I throw a lot of different profiles. This is more of a bluegill style bait right here, you guys. And of course, when you're punching, you guys, you've got to peg that weight. So make sure you peg that weight, because you can't throw that bait up in there in that mat and have the sinker fall, and then your bait's going to be laid up on top of the grass bed or hung in the grass. So make sure you peg it, because you want that bait to fall with your sinker through the mat. And I see guys come down with me, and we go to punch, whether we're here on Chickamauga or if we're on Okeechobee. They don't peg that sinker, and it's a must. You've got to peg that sinker when you're punching through grass and stuff like that. But I use a lot of different baits, you guys. This is, like I said, more of a bluegill profile. I'll go to, a lot of different crawfish patterns and stuff like that. This beaver style bait is a real good one. Catches a lot of fish this time of year. But, usually bluegill colors, green pumpkins, green pumpkin blue, black and blue, of course, is something you gotta have. And most of the time I'll have this either on a 25-pound test Seaguar, on my flipping stick. I'm using my Cast King pitching and flipping reel. I love this reel. Just started using this thing the last couple of months. But it's really smooth, and it's got good drag on it. I can walk that drag down and get those fish out there. But as far as line, normally I will always use either 25-pound test Seaguar or Braised X on my pound flipping stick, or I will go with like 50 to 60-pound test braid. If I feel like I need a braid, a lot of times I will too. But here lately, I've just been using 25-pound test fluorocarbon. I've been punching more on Chickamauga than anywhere in the last 2-3 weeks, and the water's really clear, even though you're in those mats and stuff like that. And just the lake's getting a lot of pressure, just like any other lakes. But I feel like with the fluorocarbon, I get a few more strikes than I would if I was just punching braid. But if the bite seems real aggressive, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna use braid, because I get a better hook. I feel like I can get a better hook set on it, and I can get those fish out of there. And if I get a big one on it, I can pull them out of there for sure, real easy. I've never broke off 25-pound test Seaguar, as long as I keep that knot changed, retied and stuff like that. You just gotta make sure you don't have any frays or anything. And two, you guys, when you're punching and stuff like that, you got these heavier weights, this 3/4 and 1 ounce, or even 2 ounce on Okeechobee. You've got to retie that so often, you guys. That's just a lot of pressure on that line with that daggone weight. That's tungsten, and you're in the flipping it, pitching it, jerking and stuff like that. It's going to wear on that fluorocarbon. I don't care what brand you're using or what pound test you're using. But you've got to make sure you retie this every so often. I do it probably every couple of hours, or after I catch a big fish or a couple of good fish, I may retie. I just don't want to have another good one to bite, and then I'll break my line because I didn't take the time to retie. So, and that's important with all lures, guys, but especially when you're punching and stuff like that, keep that in mind. Guys, like I said, it's not really cooled off like we want it to just yet. I got my fingers crossed. I hope it cools off. We're all want some of this fall weather to come in. I know some of you guys up north probably got cooler temperatures than we have. We just have not got it. I'm envious of those fall temperatures, but hopefully everybody, this will help you out some on the water. I appreciate you guys. Subscribe for me and follow along. Leave a comment. Let me know how you guys are doing. And if you see me on the water, give me a shout. Good luck to you. Until next time, good fishing.